Before we get started, I just wanted to remind everyone that today's session will be recorded. All lines are muted, and we ask that all participants stay on mute throughout the presentation. Juan, I'll let you go ahead and take it away. Or Joel, sorry, Joel.
That's all right. Thank you very much, Rita. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And big thank you to IPMI for having us back on this awesome forum. My name is Joel Freewa. I'm the Blink Charging Marketing Manager, or one of the marketing managers here at Blink Charging. Today, we're going to talk to you a little bit about EV charging solutions, some considerations, and some of the frequently asked questions that we get here at Blink, mainly about installation and the differences in the types of charging that there are. Joining me today is Juan Carlos Barahona. He's our Senior Director of US and Global Operations here at Blink Charging. And also Kevin Connors. He's our Project Installations Manager here at Blink Charging. They'll be giving us a lot of very useful information that hopefully you can walk out of here with an understanding of what the differences are in EV charging equipment and some of the things that you need to consider before proceeding with installation or expansion if you already have EV charging at your facility. To kick it off, I wanted to speak to you a little bit, in case you don't know, about the demand for electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are absolutely the future. Right here in this chart, you see the projected growth year over year for the demand of electric vehicles. Just between this year and probably next year, there are close to 100 new EV models coming on the market, not just Tesla. We're talking Ford, Chevrolet. I know Audi has announced that their entire lineup will be all electric by 2026. Jaguar and Cadillac have announced the same, but by 2025. So it's not just Tesla, it's not just up and coming automotive startups, it's the major players in the auto industry that are making the switch over to electric vehicles. Along with that, obviously, the most expensive part of any electric vehicle is the battery. And the battery prices, as you can see on this chart in front of you, are continuously dropping. This is cost per kilowatt hour of battery capacity. And you see there, just to give you a rough estimate, a Tesla Model 3 uses between 50 and 75 kilowatt in the battery. So as the prices for the batteries drop, the vehicle prices will drop and eventually reach that parity with the internal combustion vehicle, which will drive up demand even further. And along with that, the demand for EV charging infrastructure is, of course, going to rise, as people are going to need places to charge up all these vehicles. There's this infrastructure plan working its way through the governmental system right now. The president is pushing for, I believe, 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations. So the demand for this is only going to continue to grow. With that, we're going to go ahead and ask a quick poll question, just so we can get an idea of the audience and what your knowledge level is. And that is essentially, how much do you currently know about EVs and EV charging? And there's no shame in knowing nothing at all. That's why we're all here, is to learn a little bit. Or if you're an industry expert, that's fantastic. So I see the answers coming in. So it seems like we're right around the middle. I think we can go ahead and end the poll, Rita. Thank you. Yeah, so we seem to be right around the middle, with 39% putting themselves at a 3, 25% at a 4. So that's a good mix. I like that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Juan, who's going to tell us a little bit about some basics about EV charging and some things that we need to consider when deciding what equipment we want to get. Juan, how are you? Take it away.
Hey, Joel, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for your time today. Since I see that there is a little bit of a decent knowledge between 3 and 4, most likely, let's go through these a little bit quickly, right? So let's talk first about chargers that are networked against chargers that are non-network. Also, we will be talking about different type of chargers based upon the capacity. Those are level 1, level 2, and level 3. And we will also talk about the different type of plugs depending on the current that is provided by each type of chargers. So chargers that are network versus non-network. Basically, The second ones are just power for outlets, where you are giving away electricity for free and you don't really even know how much of that electricity was dispersed. In the other hand, you have chargers that are network. Those chargers are ideal for your type of business because those allows you to process and collect payment. It allows you to have your facilities displayed on different types of electronic platforms like Apple Maps, Google Maps, PlugShare, obviously the Blink network for those that have Blink services on their facilities. You can also delegate and maintain different type of charging locations so that you can segment. If you have multiple charging facilities, you can actually allow the manager of each facility to just take a look at their own, or you can have a regional manager having an overall control of the region. You can also activate or schedule charging services and other several different facilities through the network. On the next slide, we will be talking about the speed of the chargers. So there are two different types of chargers based upon the electricity that is being provided through. So you, in one hand, you will have chargers that are connected to AC current, and then you will have chargers that are connected to DC current. On the AC, the charger provides electricity to the vehicle, but it has to go through what is called the onboard charger, which will transfer the AC to DC current so that can be injected to the battery. In the other hand, on the DC, the charger provides DC current directly to the battery. It doesn't need to go through the rectifier. That allows the charger to just inject electricity to the vehicle in a much faster way. Now, it's a caveat that not all the plug-in hybrid vehicles are capable of taking DC. On the AC level, you will see chargers coming from 2 kilowatts to 22 kilowatts. And on the DC, you will see chargers that are from the range of 24 kilowatts to 150 kilowatts. So
Sorry,
next,
Juan, I don't mean to interrupt you, but can you clarify something for me real quick? I was always under the understanding that the maximum allowable for an AC level 2 charger was 19.2. Why does that say 22?
that's a good question because nowadays with the globalization, you will be seeing chargers that will be offering 22 kilowatts, but we got to be careful and take a look at the fine print of the specs, because most likely those are chargers that are type 2 connectors that are designed for the European markets with 3-phase circuits on it. Typically in US, we don't have AC chargers with 3-phase. We are always single phase.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
No, thanks, you, man. So talking about the type of chargers, and this is exactly related to the speed. You will see chargers that are level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1 chargers are those that comes with the vehicle that typically is just a cord that you can plug to a regular outlet. And those are 120 volts, and it can give you up to 16 amps on the circuit. Then you have level 2s. Those are in the range of 16 to 80 amps in the output, and those are typically 240 volts. And then anything that goes beyond that is considered level 3 chargers or fast chargers. Now, it's important to say that not all level 2 are DC or AC. Actually, that's the only level where you will have a combination of both. You will be finding chargers that are direct current, but they are level 2 because they are not giving out more than 50 kilowatts per hour. On the plugs, you will find different type of plugs depending on the level of the charger. You will see the standard plug that is typically what we see on the level 1s. You will see J1772 plugs or Tesla plugs. That is the typical plug that we will see on vehicles that are manufactured in US and a good portion of Asia, except China. And then you will see on the DC chargers, what we call the CCS combo, the CHAdeMO, which is more typical on Japanese vehicles, and then obviously the Tesla superchargers. Now, the question will be, what is more effective for a parking facility? Typically, you will try to install DC fast chargers on any environment that is fast paced, like a convenience store, where you need to just get there, do whatever you want to do in less than 20 minutes and get out. That includes charging. If you are on the road on highways, ideally also to have a DC fast charger. But for any other type of business, the charger type that we recommend the most is actually level 2. Because think about it. Your clients will go to the parking spot, will park, will connect, and they have to go somewhere else, do whatever they want to do. That will be easily more than half an hour, probably an hour and beyond that. If you're providing fast charging on that environment, your client will have to stop whatever they are doing. They will have to go back to the parking spot and they will have to move the vehicle. And that turns into not the best experience, I would say, for your clients. On the other hand, if you have multiple level 2s, your client will be able to do everything that they need to do, come back with the vehicle, and even put in enough electricity on the batteries. On top of that, if you take a look at the last line on this slide, you will see the cost of installation. For the same amount that you will be spending on installing a DC fast charger, you can easily install up to 10 level 2s. Now let's talk about what Blink represents. This is Blink Charging. We have been in the market for decently more than 12 years already. We have deployed more than 24 charging stations in the commercial side. And currently I'm proud to say that we already reached the mark of 200,000 plus registered members on the US market. These are the type of chargers that we provide. You will find the family of product, the IQ200, which is our level 2 charging stations. You will see also the DC fast chargers. We can provide you with units from the range of 50 to 175 kilowatts. And the one in the middle is what we have designed for road service assistance, and also to alleviate what is known as range anxiety. This is a portable charger that can give you decent 15 miles or a little bit more in less than 15 minutes. So you can get the assistance on the road and power enough to get to the next or the closest charging stations to actually top up your vehicle. Another big advantage of Blink is the Blink network, which is the platform that allows us to administrate the charging stations, that can also give you the functionality of reporting, getting remote EV monitoring of your stations. You can also control the way that the charging station behaves in matter of payment, and multiple other functions. On the business models, I believe you missed one. There you go. So on the business models, we do have different ways to help you guys to deploy charging stations on your facilities. One of the good things with Blink is that we are a vertically integrated company, that we design the hardware, we manufacture the hardware, and we are also owners of the platform that controls them. So we can design or tailor a business model that fits your needs.
Great, thank you, Juan. Let's go ahead and launch our second poll question. And that is, if you are familiar with the three types of level charging, maybe you've heard of DC fast, but not level 2, whatever the case might be. If you are interested in a particular type of EV charging, go ahead and let us know in the chat now. That way we can, again, get to know a little bit more about the audience that we're talking to, and maybe tailor our presentation a little bit more to you guys. All right, I see a lot of level 2 interest, about 70% right now. Let's give it a few more seconds.
While we allow the people to,
Yeah.
to provide answers, another interesting thing with DC versus level 2 is, and the habits of the EV drivers, is that close to 80% of the charging sessions actually happens at home. And the public infrastructure is considered a secondary source of power for the vehicles. So that is something else to have in considerations, because most likely an EV driver will charge primarily at home, but then the second source will be work, shopping centers, or parking facilities where they spend more than 2-3 hours. So that's something else to have in consideration when you're deciding what type of hardware to install.
Very good. Very good to know. All right. So results of our poll question, we got almost 69%, which pretty much 70% are interested in level 2, with 30% wanting to know more about DC fast charging. Very good. Thank you all very much for answering those questions. And with that, let's go ahead and keep it moving just to get a little bit more in detail into what level 2 charging and DC fast charging is, so you can clearly see the differences. Go ahead, Juan.
Okay, so we were, if this is the level 2 charging models that we have. One important thing to tell on this one is that when we started, we took all of our competitors' goods and bad, and we incorporate those to our designs. The Blink IQ 200 is, as of today, if not the only one, the charger that can put out up to 19.2 kilowatts per hour on AC chargers, which is the max allowed by specs on J1772. Most of our competitors are producing their chargers to put out up to 40 amps, which is 7.2 kilowatts. We were told that we were crazy when we put this unit on the market. That was 3-4 years ago. Now you see the Audi e-tron, you see Ford with the new vehicles, you see the Porsche Taycan. All of those vehicles, their onboard charger has the capacity of absorbing this amount of power. Now this is a charger that really provides the services that your drivers need. And connectivity-wise, our units are OCPP 1.7 JSON that allows the chargers to talk to different platforms. That applies both to the AC that we are seeing and also to the DC chargers. It gives us also the ability to provide other functionalities like local load management, which is also a good feature to have when you need to balance the load that is being put out from your electrical circuits. Those are the chargers that we have on the DC fast chargers. As I said before, we have the capacity of providing you with dual DC chargers from the range of 50 kilowatts to 175 kilowatts. So those are very interesting questions that you have to ask yourself when you're deciding what type of infrastructure to deploy in your facilities. Who's the client that you're providing services to? What matters the more, dwell time or turnover? How much are you able to invest on EV chargers? As I said before, installing a DC fast charger is a heavy expenditure on capital. You also have to consider what incentives are available per type of charger, and what is the EV population in the area, and most important, the EV population that you take care of in your facilities.
All right, so just to wrap this up, Juan, let's just go over this slide very quickly so we can move along to the installation considerations.
All right, perfect. So those are the general aspects of and differences from level 2 on AC and DC fast chargers. The application, you can install the level 2s in public commercial charging needs. On the DC, it's ideal to have in highway and road trip chargings. It's the level 2 is ideal for longer dwell times, and the DC is for high turnover locations like convenience stores, as I was saying before. The existing infrastructure on level 2 is 240 volts. For DCFCs, you need 480. Those are the different type of plugs that you will have available on level 2s. And this is important to mention also. You will see that Tesla has its own plug. That's well known. But when you go to the Tesla dealer and you sign up for your vehicle, it comes with a J1772 adapter, so the Blink charging stations can easily take care also of Tesla drivers. And since we are 19.2 kilowatts, the Tesla drivers are the one of those that gets the most out of the charging stations. Overall, the cost, you will see that it's more affordable to install multiple level 2, so you can take care of multiple clients at the same time, than installing the DC fast chargers, which will let you provide quicker service to a client, but you will have to spend a lot more if you want to take care of multiple clients at the same time.
Well, thank you very much, Juan. Guys, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in right here at the end of the presentation. We're going to get to all of them. So with that, let's go ahead and launch our third poll question. And that is, being in the parking industry, do you operate a garage or a parking lot? Kevin, if you would, well, welcome to the presentation, first off. I don't think you've spoken yet, but could you give us a little bit about what the differences are regarding EV charging, whether it's a garage or a lot?
Yes, definitely. I'm Kevin Connors, Projects Installation Manager with Blink. So to speak a little bit about parking garages versus parking lots, it is for installation, it is a very, very different install scenario. Parking garages can typically be easier. You might run exposed conduit on the concrete walls, so you might not be dealing with any trenching cost. A lot of times parking garages will have much more existing power than a parking lot. Maybe they have an elevator, or they're connected to a building, or there's some other big loads, sometimes even conditioned air. So there's a lot more existing power to work with. And typically between that and avoiding trenching, it can be a lot easier in a parking garage than a parking lot. A lot of times in a parking lot, there might just be house power powering the lights and not a lot of extra electrical capacity. A lot of times any large loads are dedicated to tenants and wouldn't exactly be for the developer or the owner of the lot. So parking lots can bring in a lot of new power, which adds to cost and time. Plus, most of the time you have to get through a good amount of asphalt to get to where you want to put the chargers, which would then increase your installation costs.
That's a lot of things I would have never thought of. All right, so our poll, let's see, we have 38% of folks operating a parking garage, 17% a lot, 21% some kind of integrated facility, whether it's with an educational facility or healthcare facility, and 24% with other. So with that information, Kevin, go ahead and let's take it away here. Let's talk a little bit about the site assessment.
Yes. So things you want to consider when getting to installation, obviously a trusted contractor. It's the majority of the work is going to be electrical work. So you're going to be dealing with an electrician. You might want to get a site work person on the side on your own. Maybe you have an electrician that is able to handle any concrete work or trenching, but that's something to think about. Permit requirements can be drastically different depending on where you are. They can range anywhere from just submitting the application and a blank spec sheet to more in the middle, which would be a site plan and a one-line diagram, getting all the way up to engineered stamp drawings, which is just going to add time and cost. And that's going to depend on your authority having jurisdiction that signs off on your permitting. Utility involvement, if you could avoid it, that's absolutely fantastic. If you don't have to get the utility involved, you're going to save time and money. But if you don't have enough power, then you would have to bring the utility in, or maybe you find that you have enough power to install some now, and maybe you bring them in later when you want to do an expansion. But those are things to think about. The actual parking spots themselves and available circuitry, you want to get close to the power. The further your parking spot is from the power, the more expensive your install is typically going to be. It's just more linear feet of materials and more labor hours. There's going to be more wire, more conduit. When you have more amperage available, especially in the correct voltage of 208 to 240 volt, that is when you can see a decrease in the install price as well. You want to make sure chargers are accessible, not hidden anywhere. They're not in an unsafe spot. Getting chargers online, this is a very, very important one that can go overlooked sometimes. And this will factor in a little bit with the people that run parking garages rather than a parking lot. So the chargers need to be online, which means they need data. They need to be able to communicate. The absolute easiest way to do this is to use the pre-installed cellular SIM card that's already in the charger and will automatically come online once the charger's powered up. The only thing is that you actually need cell service. So if you're in maybe you're in an underground parking garage, that can be a little bit of an issue. So our backup option is Wi-Fi connectivity. If you're within 150 feet in line of sight of a Wi-Fi access point, then you can connect to Wi-Fi instead of cellular. But cellular is just a little bit easier. You don't have to worry about that Wi-Fi access point going down or anything like that. Backup for cellular is a cellular booster you can install to bring service there. That would be if you're in an underground garage, but if you're in a dead zone in an area that just doesn't have cell reception in the area, then that wouldn't work, because for a booster to work, it has to go get cell service and bring it to you. Future expansion is a critical thing to think about. It is so much easier to trench once, install conduit once, buy an upgraded panel once, and maybe you only install 2 chargers, but you buy your infrastructure for 8 chargers. So when you install the remaining 6 chargers, the majority of your work is already done, and you don't have to double your efforts and double your costs in a lot of things. Also, mounting options. Wall mounts would be cheaper than pedestal mount typically. You can avoid buying a concrete pad, avoid buying the pedestal itself, and it just goes in a little faster.
Yeah, right here we have the mounting options.
Yes, so right there you can see you wall mount all the way to the left, a single pedestal followed by a double pedestal, followed by the pole mount. Wall mount is going to be the easiest. Goes straight on the wall, no concrete pad, no assembling a pedestal, no bolting down a pedestal. You get to the single pedestal. If I would recommend you go with a dual over a single if possible. That's not always going to be available. Maybe you need to spread them out. Some states will require ADA spots to have singles, not doubles. Every situation is different. But if you have the option to go with double pedestals instead of singles, you will save money, because it's half the amount of pedestals you need to build, half the amount of pedestals you need to install, half the concrete pads, and so on. The light pole option can be a good option to avoid a pedestal as well. You would avoid all the things that I just said, and it kind of plays in almost as a wall mount installation.
Thank you, Kevin. Now, Kevin, we've thrown the term around local load management. Juan mentioned it. You've mentioned it. Let's watch a little video real quick, and then you can tell us a little bit more about exactly what that is. I just want folks to be able to understand it. All right, hopefully that somewhat explains it. So Kevin, can you tell us a little bit more? Local load management is a system by which the interconnected chargers, I think it's up to 20, you tell me if I'm wrong, can actually share power from one source.
Correct. So we actually have the ability to put up to 20 chargers on a single circuit. I would obviously recommend that circuit size is 100 amps, but local load management is going to be a critical way to get multiple chargers in without having ridiculous infrastructure costs to upgrade your electrical capacity, while also keeping the full advantage of the high potential of the amperage output from the chargers. So what you saw in that video is 4 chargers installed on one single 100 amp circuit instead of them all having their own circuit. So they're all sharing the circuit. The 100 amp circuit has a maximum output of 80 amps. That's because of the National Electric Code. Any appliance on a continuous circuit can only dispense up to 80% of the circuit size, not just a Blink thing, not just an EV charging thing. If one car is plugged in, they'll get the full 80. And then as you see, as more cars plug in, it splits it down the middle. When people finish their charge, the rest of the juice gets redistributed to the other cars that are still charging. So instead of going with 4 separate circuits and limiting the high output of the chargers, if one's only in use, you install them all on the same circuit. And if one person's plugged in, they still get that 80 amp charger. And you can seriously avoid some serious costs in one, upgrading your electrical capacity and your infrastructure, but also you're only going to run one set of wires from the power source out to the parking area. And then when you get to the parking area, that's when you do the split offs, and your additional wiring is a very small linear feet. So you could save yourself some large amounts of linear feet on the wiring in the conduit.
Great. That's very, very good to know. Thank you for that, Kevin. Okay, let's finish this off and get to some Q&A here in just a second. But before that, let's launch our 4th poll question, just to kind of get an idea of where folks are located around the country. And the reason for that is because I'm about to give you some grant information and incentive information that might be available. And if I know what area you're in, maybe I can focus on that a little more. So let's see, it's pretty evenly distributed. So I think we may have to cover everything. Well, luckily there's, it's a very broad topic, so there's really not that much to cover, but seems like the majority of folks are in the Midwest, but also a lot of folks in California and the Pacific Northwest, even Texas and the Southeast also. So it's very evenly distributed. So let's go ahead and end that poll. And we can share the results there. So just to let everybody know before we end that there are grants, rebates, and tax credits available. They may be from the federal government. Right now, there's still a 30% of the cost of installation rebate, up to $30,000 tax credit, excuse me, not rebate, up to $30,000 per installation site. Or these incentives, they can be in the form of grants, rebates, or other types of incentives. Can come from municipal governments, county governments, state governments, or even the utility companies. A lot of the times have incentive programs to get EV charging up and going within their jurisdictional locations. A few examples of places right now that have these grants going on. California always has something going on, whether it's at the municipal or county level or at the state level. California is kind of like a hub for electric vehicles right now. Colorado recently announced a program. New York's got a lot of programs. All the colored states that you see right there, they all have some kind of program currently running. And these are always coming online. I believe Michigan and Ohio are about to launch an incentive program as well. And Arkansas is about to expand their DC fast infrastructure plan, as well as Florida. So you can find out all this information on our website, blinkcharging.com. There's a commercial incentives link right there, and you just simply drop down to your state, and then it'll tell you what's available. So we encourage everybody to go do that. With that, Juan and Kevin, thank you both very much. Let's get to some questions. Rita, I'll turn it back over to you.
Sure. So our first question comes from Ron, and he is asking, what is your opinion on the inline smart device that falls between the breaker panel and any dumb charger? It's basically an electricity vending machine that works with an app for the customer. Liberty Technologies makes it.
Interesting. I'm going to turn that over to Kevin or Juan, because I've honestly, full disclosure, I've never heard of it.
That's one way to put it, that it turns it into the ability to accept money, but it really is more than just a vending machine, because when you have the flexibility within our charger, that network, that smart piece that you're referring to, allows you to change the price per kilowatt hour, change the price per time that you're parked for. It'll allow you to do customized things on the charger, like have hours where it's off or offline. Eventually, we'll have on-screen advertisements. You get on the map, you track all your usage, so you can log into your dashboard and see how many people charged today, how long were they charging for, how many kilowatt hours did they buy, how long were they plugged in but not actually charging, which is occupancy time. And it even gives you the ability to charge an occupancy fee. If someone's plugged in for longer than they're charging, you can give them a grace period where they get a text message or an email and need to remove their car. And if they stay past the grace period, you can charge them whatever you decide to. So it is more than just a vending machine, but definitely accepting the money might be the main benefit.
I will add something to that. Good to accept the money, of course, but you have to realize the importance of have a broader network behind the charger, because the network also turns into way to attract more clients. When you have a broader network supporting your charger, your location will be visible in multiple platforms, and people who drive CVs will tend to look for your parking stations instead of others that don't have charging facilities.
Yeah, and that includes Google Maps, Apple Maps, and even the PlugShare app, which is a very popular app among EV drivers. They all feed directly from the Blink network information.
And I would say one quick additional piece of it being a smart charger is to add to the flexibility. If you wanted to, let's say you don't plan on doing infrastructure upgrades today, and maybe you can only spare a 40 amp circuit, you could buy our charger, install it on that 40 amp circuit. And in the future, when you feel like doing your infrastructure upgrades, you can upgrade the circuit size and reprogram that same piece of hardware, that same charger, to now accept the 100 amp circuit. With a non-smart charger, you would actually have to buy a new piece of hardware for the larger circuit.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. Rita, what's next?
Okay, our next question is from Raymond. He says, is it best to charge by the hour or by the kilowatt, and which is more popular?
On that one, I believe there's a secondary comment right after that, which is important to bring on, because the fact that you charge either by time or by kilowatt is also through the state legislations. Currently, there are 30 states in US that allow you to charge by the kilowatt hour. That, the truth to be told, that's the most fair way to charge a driver for the amount of electricity that they are drawing from the charging stations. But there are still 20 states that don't allow anybody but utility companies to charge by the kilowatt. In those cases, you do have to charge by time based. Otherwise, you will be considered a utility company and you will be not in compliance with the local legislation. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
Okay, our next question comes from Jeff. He is asking, on the slide where you are giving them estimated costs to install, does that include any infrastructure costs? Do you expect to have to do any infrastructure work?
Yes. These would be including all infrastructure and actual installations of the charger as well. More than 95% of the work is in the infrastructure. And these would also be your complete turnkey estimates. When I say that, I mean including your permitting, protective equipment, signage, any communication device. Once the infrastructure is in place, the actual installation of the chargers is in the hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars. So yes, that is a complete turnkey install.
Great. Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, Fernando would like to know, are the regional electrical infrastructure capable to handle the amount of chargers that are anticipated for EV goals, and which states are in a better position to handle the loads?
So that is a challenge for all of the utility companies right now across not just US, but everywhere else in the world. day after day, utilities are trying to improve their production capacity because they know that EV vehicles are here to stay, and that is definitely the path towards the future. You do see California that is already banning new gas stations to be built in their territories. You do see other states also following that path. The utility companies are also growing their capacity to be able to upfront that future need of electricity.
Great.
Okay, I think you answered this question, but Paul is asking, is it possible to connect multiple level 2 chargers on a single 100 amp circuit, or are dedicated circuits required for each?
Yeah, Kevin, this is exactly what we were talking about with the local load management, right?
Correct. Up to 20 chargers on one circuit is the max.
Great.
Okay, and then our next question is from Nan. They're asking, has Blink worked with any EV charging station state grant programs, and if so, what are these states?
Well, that's a good one, and we have had working and are currently working with several EV charging stations and in different states. We have Vermont, we have Texas, California is about to launch another program where we are already in line with the administrative agency that will be running the program. Florida has another program also about to be launched. So short answer is yes, we do work with them, and we will be working with them and assisting facilities to get the most benefit of it.
I really think the next one's a good one for Kevin.
So the next question is, why is there such a large delta on the fast charging station, $25,000 to $80,000?
Was that on the referring to the hardware cost?
Well, why don't you address the installation and we'll let Juan address the hardware so we can cover both.
Okay. So so on the DC fast, it is very expensive to install. The simple reasons being it's 480 volt, which means not everywhere has 480 volt. So you either need to bring some there, which can be very expensive, take some from far away, which is going to be expensive, or bring in a ton of 240 volt, install transformers, all adding to expense, and step it up into the 480 volt range. Then, when I was mentioning before, one of the most expensive factors of EV charging installation is getting power from point A to point B. On 480 volt, you're going to pay much more per linear foot because your wiring is much bigger, so it's much more expensive. Your conduits are going to be bigger. And they're big, heavy machines. So you're going to need a lift or some sort of lull for the actual installation of just moving the machine around. You know, it's hundreds of pounds instead of 25 pounds. So that adds to the install cost. And the range of the DC fast chargers, as you climb in the KW, you need bigger and thicker and stronger wires, which keeps adding to the cost.
And all the factors that Kevin just mentioned regarding the electrical infrastructure that will feed the chargers, it's also transferred to the charger itself. The lower amount of power, the lower the cost. But if you start on 50 kW DC at 25,000 and you want to jump all the way to 175 kilowatts, on the lower side of the power, we have a single case where all the components are inside. But the more power you need, then you have to have an extra power unit behind the fence that is not visible to the clients, and you do have to have a dispenser unit to interact with the client. That's why the broader price between 50s and 175 kWs.
Great, thank you both for that.
We probably only have time for one more question, 3:14. So Benito is asking, any discussion about curbside charging installation in addition to parking lots and parking garages?
Yes, curbside is something that we currently do. It's not exactly the easiest. You're almost always going to be working with the utility company to pull new power. which can mean one of several things. Maybe the power is right next to you on a power pole and there's plenty there, or maybe it has to come from further away. But you most likely you will be working with the utility company, which means depending on which utility company you have, it could be anywhere from very cheap but it's still an added cost, but very cheap and quick, to months of backlog waiting and a high construction cost on their end. But it is something that we currently do and something that's very possible, but it also will take additional permitting from the town.
Correct. And that's why we designed the pole mount kit that was shown in one of our pictures with the AC units. And to add to Kevin's comment, it also requires a huge interaction with the city because of permits on the street and type of zoning on certain areas of the cities. So it is something that we work with, but it requires a lot of coordination with cities and utilities.
Great, thank you both for that. I know we don't have time for any more questions, Rita, so if we can, you tell me if it's possible to get a list of all the remaining questions, and I will email out to everybody who attended a follow-up email with the answers that we weren't able to get.
Absolutely.
So with that, thank you all very much for attending. Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Kevin, for giving us your time. Rita, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, everybody. I posted the link to the next Zoom that started at 3:15 in the chat box. We'll see you there.
Thank you all very much. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.